I'm Richard Porter.
I'm Jonny Smith.
And this is On the Other Side of Things, the Smith & Sniff spin-off in which we answer your questions.
It's the other side of things.
Here we are then, on a Friday, answering listeners' questions. If you've got a question for us, hello@smithandsniff.com. Mark your emails, subject line, starting Otosot helps us to find them because we're a bit useless.
We are.
Somebody who has helpfully put Otosot in their subject line is a listener called Rich. They've signed themselves Rich T. Biscuit, which I assume is not their real name. I've never met anyone with the surname Biscuit, but anyway, Rich says, I need the help of you two super strokers. My Honda Jazz is heading to the big breakers yard in the sky, basically in Wiltshire.
Fake news. It
put in a good, yes, I could say, surely not. It's got years of life left in it.
Jazz is never going to breakers. He says,
it's put in a good innings, carried me and its previous owner over 185,000 miles. But after the list of things to fix outweighed its value by approximately 5 times, its days were numbered.
Oh, shit.
So I need your advice on a new second-hand car.
Oh, right.
The budget is maximum £6,000.
Okay, that's the top limit. Right.
Yeah. I will not do many miles, 4,000 to 5,000 miles per year.
Okay.
It must be cheap to run and maintain.
Yes.
It must be able to fit my bike in the boot after taking the bike wheels off.
Yes.
He says 90% of the time the Jazz's rear seats were down, so the bike could easily fit on the bed. Well, yeah, they're good, aren't they, those folding Jazz seats?
Magic chairs or whatever they call them, yeah.
Yeah. I would prefer the miles per gallon to be above 40, but must not be lower than 35. Road tax must not exceed £300 per year. Plan is to own it for a maximum of 4 years, and I'd like to resell and recover half of the 6,000.
Oh my gosh, so many stipulations.
Number of doors and vehicle shape/type are open to interpretation. The likely uses are short trips to work, gym, and local primary to pick up my offspring. Occasional long journeys to Dartmouth or Hastings or Forest of Dean Bike Park. I'd like to love it, is his final request. I saw a 2010 base spec grey Skoda Fabia, and while I know it would be absolutely fine, I can't tell you how uninspired I was by it.
Right.
If you find it in you to make a recommendation, I would hugely appreciate it.
Super strokers, I do like being called that in some way.
Yes.
Because
also just reminds me of the water pistol.
Yes.
Okay, this is tall order in a way.
It's a very tall order, and based upon his previous, I've come up with a cunning idea. Mm-hmm. This is my car suggestions is a Honda, because he obviously has done Honda time. But it's an interesting Honda. I think you'll be able to fit a bike in it. I don't know how many offspring he's got, but it's a 2+2 rather than and I'm going to go out, Rich, with combining MPG goodness with driving pleasure. Honda CRZ.
Ooh.
Now, I'm pretty sure that's got a hatchback, and it's a bit like my Insight in that the boot area is actually quite useful. With wheels taken off a bike, it would probably fit. I can fit a bike with one wheel. I'm a full-size mountain bike with one wheel removed into my Honda Insight, which is amazing, really.
Really?
Yeah, really, really.
Okay.
And the thing about the CRZ, as you might remember, testing one when they were new, they were so much fun. The suspension and the steering's really tight and precise.
I never drove the CRZ, but I was suddenly messaged by Evo, and they said, we've got another long-termer for you. It's going to be a Honda CRZ. And I went, okay, I'm quite down with that. I've heard they're good, and that'll be interesting apart from anything else. And then Honda went, it was just when the economy had tanked in 2009, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the Honda press office went, actually, we're
not.
We're reining everything in, so no long-termers, soz.
Oh.
And that was it. And I know I've still never driven one, but I hear they're good. I'm just looking at pictures of the boot on those. I mean, it's surprisingly big, but is it bike big? I don't know.
That's the thing I don't know, and I don't know how quickly he could break his bike down. and whether that would annoy him.
I don't know. Well, it's an interesting thought because it definitely fulfills a lot of other things, as in cheap to run and maintain.
Yeah.
MPG, road tax, I haven't looked this up, but nice to drive.
Yeah.
And you could get one for 6, couldn't you?
You can get a very nice one for 6. And there's also a man up in Hull called Peter Perkins, who I took my Insight to, who is the guru, and he hacks CRZs now.
Oh, does he?
And does lots of different economy and performance hacks to do with CRZs. Not that you would need to do that, but
no. I think so. Like messing with the hybrid system, so
it can have more adjustable regen, and it can give out more power on full throttle. And he'll even change the cells in them for later. I think CRV hybrid cells. But the bottom line is, they're a really good-looking, interesting to drive eco car that will easily do 50 to the gallon, and if you want a car that you actually enjoy, that also ticks those boxes, I think it will, depending on the size of your children and the quantity of your children. I mean, obviously you've got the passenger seat, but the 2 plus... Well, because if you've got 2 children, if one of them's really small, they'll fit in the back, but if they're not, it is a 2 plus 2. It's not a proper car in that respect.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
I thought I like your suggestion. I didn't see that coming, and I think it's good. Really boring and yet not. In fact, in the last Otosot, I was waxing on about how nice to drive the recent generation Fiesta was, and indeed the one before. It's not dissimilar looking, and I think that would fulfill all of those criteria. It's not particularly exciting. I think maybe, actually, if you don't do many miles in it, you might get half your money back after 4 years or something. Just couldn't guarantee it. But just as a functional thing that is nice to drive, I don't think you can go far wrong with the Fiesta, and they're pretty cheap to run and fix, aren't they? So
yeah. Just
watch out for those stupid wet belt engines.
Yeah, don't be a wet belt bandit. Rich tea. I haven't had a rich tea biscuit for a very long time, and I used to at university. They were my go-to munchies.
Really?
Yeah, they were.
Over a digestive?
No, I think digestive pipped it because it felt more substantial.
Yeah.
But nobody's ever written in, strangely, to Smith and Stiff to ask whether we should road test rich tea versus digestive biscuit.
No. Otherwise, it's because, again, something that doesn't seem that exciting, but actually would be really nice, is a Mazda 3.
Mazda 3s are great. I mean, lots of Mazdas are great. We've sung the praises of Mazdas many times. In fact, my videographer Phil, who lives in a Mazda 6 estate, his car will do, I think, 50 to the gallon. It's a diesel, so not so good if you're doing 4,000 miles a year potentially. But as an estate and a driver's car, I think it's wonderful. Honestly, really good. But watch out for back-end rot. They rot appallingly around the rear axle.
What, the 6s do? Or
yeah.
Is this a
Mazda 6s.
General Mazda problem?
I think it's a 6 problem, but
right.
Yeah, I have to do my homework on that.
Well, because I'm just looking here. I've just gone quickly onto Autotrader, because, of course, the thing is that the petrol Mazda 3s have that's what they call Sky Active thing, don't they? So even the petrols, in theory, be quite economical. Here, £5,500, a 2014 Mazda 3 2-litre Sky Active Sports Nav Euro 5. Car names are very complicated when they're
very.
It's in that brilliant soul red, that beautiful red that Mazda do.
Yeah, it's a serious red. It's an expensive red.
It's got. It's a manual, so if you like driving, they're really nice to drive. Those, it's got a nice big boot on it because it's a medium-sized hatchback. So particularly with seats there, I reckon you'll be able to sling a bike in there, no problem at all. It's got 90-odd thousand miles on it, 92,500 miles on it. So it's a little bit leggy, but I wouldn't say it's absolutely coming apart at the seams. And that's just the first one that I found that caught my eye. I'm warming to this theme. Mazda 3, that's what I'm going to say.
Mazda 3. I think, consider the above, but tell us what you end up going for.
Yes.
I want to I want to read this one out from Chris Dukas. This is titled "The Lost Art of Jump-Starting a Car." I really resonated with this story, or letter, whatever you would call it. Guys, we were chatting with some SSG colleagues over an exquisite dinner, and I was narrating the adventures of my wife when her beloved Ford Ka 1.2 had a flat battery whilst parked at our work. Of course, I placed a suitable for the car jump lead set in the said Ka's boot, together with basic tools and other car survival equipment, exactly as my father taught me. Oh, I can relate. So all they had to do is to bring one of their cars close, use the provided leads, and everyone would be right off to a new adventure. To my surprise, no one around her workplace had any idea or willingness to help her jumpstart her car. So, is jumpstarting a lost art nowadays? What else do you think we might be taking for granted, but majority of normal people have no idea about? Regards, Christos. P.S. I've already taught her how to change a tyre, inspect oil, coolant, washer fluid on a weekly basis. Boom. Chris.
Well, it's a good point, isn't it?
It's a really, really good point. So I was taught by my dad to be a bit of a prepper for this sort of thing and not be phased. I think it's a lack of understanding or willingness to even want to know about how cars work. Until it all goes shit down the shit tube, and then everybody panics. But I think it is a lost art in the same way that people don't know how to change a wheel anymore, and they just stare at a car and they'd rather wait an hour and a half for the AA to turn up, which beats.
Well,
it.
In fairness, I think part of the loss of that skill is because most cars don't have a spare wheel anymore.
Of course.
And so you can't, as I found out when I had a blowout on my Tesla, that you cannot do anything because there's no spare or even a can of goo, and you just have to call for a recovery service,
which is just so backwards. It
is, isn't it?
It's regression.
The worst thing is, I think a lot of cars, for packaging reasons, the designers have gone, oh, thank God, we can get rid of the spare and even the space saver, and of course it saves money for the car company, so they like that. But actually,
it's not a place to save
car of mine
money.
has got loads of space in it, and it would be annoying to lose a big chunk of the underfloor storage because it's very useful when you're going away. But you could get a spare under there. So they've made the decision not to package a spare because I guess day to day they think more customers would appreciate having this huge well under the boot floor and this big frunk at the front, and would rather not lug around even a space saver. But on that one time that you need it, you suddenly curse that design decision.
I think it's one of those things that when you're ticking your options list these days and people get carried away, you should option in, if you can, a space saver. I mean...
That's it. Some places they offer it as an option, don't they?
Yeah.
So the car has got room for it, so they've chosen just not to put it in there.
Yeah. So is it a lost art? No, I don't think it is. A few months ago, did I get up in the morning, decide to take the kids to school in my Beetle, and it was boxing in another car on the drive, and I went to turn the key and the battery was flat. What did I do? I'll tell you what I did. I said to the kids, don't worry, just help me push it off the drive, and the cul-de-sac I live in has a slight downhill. I said, just push it up to the top and I'll push the car. You guys get in, just watch. And I just did exactly what we all used to do. I pushed the car as fast as I could down the cul-de-sac. I pumped the throttle a couple of times, dropped the clutch in second. And my son Wesson's eyes were like, how did you do that? How does that work? So I spent the next 5 minutes explaining him on the way to work that that's what you do, because you can't do it with an auto.
It's so satisfying when it works, isn't it?
It's great. It's so great.
The last time I did it, as you know, or you might remember, is when I was selling my Panda. Yeah. And the battery had died when the guy came over to test drive it. So embarrassing. And also the fact that him and his dad, they were both lovely, lovely people, went, oh, we'll push, you drive, in the pouring rain. And then
they
was
bought
just
the car.
So embarrassing. And he still bought the car, but it was the fact that it came to life. because I was a bit like, please work, please work, please work. And it is such a feeling of relief and happiness when it does work properly and a bump start. But a jump start, getting the jump leads out and doing the thing, it's weird, isn't it? I suppose most people just don't know what to do.
No.
Because no one's ever told them.
No.
And because probably just generally cars are more dependable these days. That
I'm off.
They don't just suck their batteries dry while you're not looking.
Well, I'm quite happy to, I'm not exactly a guru on these things at all. I'm quite happy to divulge some basic car skills in exchange for people teaching me how to cook better. So we've all got weaknesses. So, maybe I'll do a tutorial.
I can teach you a few extra dishes if you want, but
can I teach you anything though regarding cars?
I'm sure you could. I'm not that good, practically speaking. But it's fear. I have a fear. Even jump starting a car, I have a slight fear of, somehow accidentally sparking next to a fuel leak and causing an explosion. I was in my car, I can't remember which one, it might have been my Rover 75, had died. And a mate of mine who's very hands-on with cars happened to be working in the same building at that time. And I was like, oh, God, if you go, jump leads, would you mind? He was like, yeah, no problem at all. He sort of zoomed his car up. But the very sort of effortless, cavalier way in which, almost in one fluid movement, he's just clipping on all the things and getting it all going. Yeah. I tend to approach it with caution because I fear messing it up in some crass way. And he's just not scared of electricity, basically.
I'm become much more confident since doing barn finds on an almost weekly basis.
That's one of the things when I watch your barn finds and I see you with your can of hope and stuff, I just go, I feel like that there's a part of the coward in me just goes, oh God, I wouldn't do that.
You should come on one with me. Can you write a letter to Smith and Sniff, Otosot, and saying
Smith will fix it?
Yes, something like that. I would love that. I think that's great.
Speaking of writing in, a listener called Josh has asked us, what has happened to Mazda?
Oh.
So we were just talking about it, weren't we? But they went from having the best-looking cars on the market to getting some inspiration from BMW and over-styling everything. The CX-50, CX-70 and CX-90 all look shit compared to their CX-5, 7 and 9 predecessors. Any thoughts?
I think and this is not just Mazda, really. Personally, I think this is the curse of the SUV and consequently crossover popularity platform or cash cow. And therefore, designs have to lend themselves towards a shape which is less ergonomic, less aero, less interesting, possibly less practical. And therefore, it's all gone a bit khaki.
I mean, I know what you mean because those sort of medium-sized SUVs are all very sort of similar shape and proportions, aren't they? They're just that sort of somehow they're locked in. Only in the way that, 30 years ago, all medium-sized saloons were broadly the same proportions. But anyway, I think Josh is right, though, that the previous generation of Mazda SUVs managed to be some of the nicest looking of those types of cars.
They did.
If you look at he's particularly, I think, the CX-80 and the CX-60. Yeah, there's something very sort of slabby about them.
It's so true. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
they do have still, and Mazda have got very good in recent years at doing these sort of very fluid, interesting surfaces, interesting sculpting down the sides of the car, and there's still a bit of that going on, but the overall effect is I think because the bonnets have got sort of higher and flatter and the front ends have got more aggressive, they just look a bit sort of lumpen. They've lost some of the elegance they had before.
Yeah.
Do you know what someone told me about Mazda is that a lot of car companies now are sort of shying away from so much clay modelling. They'd rather do it all in the virtual realm. And in fact, some companies, if they're on a tighter budget, they don't do the clay model phase. They just go straight from the screen to committing to production.
Oh, bloody
One
hell.
example a few years ago was the Lamborghini Huracan. Apparently there was no modelling phase for that car. And a couple of professional car designers have told me separately that if you are trained in car design, you can spot that there are some bits on the Huracan, which personally I thought was quite a nice looking car, but apparently if you've got a trained eye, you go, yeah, you can see it didn't have that final level of finessing to it. It's a bit crude in some places in just the surface detail and stuff.
Bloody hell, you shouldn't cut those corners on a supercar where it's so...
No.
It's such a heart purchase with your heart, not your head.
Well, exactly. And also Lamborghinis tend to have a long production life, so you can sort of amortize the extra cost across loads of years of production if you've done your maths right. So it does seem like a false economy, but there we go. I suspect it was probably something where they just went, oh, the technology does it. It's not even the cost per se. It's also just going, wow, computers can do everything. Let's go with that. But conversely, somebody told me that Mazda has doubled down on the opposite and committed to clay modelling. When they decided that one of their things was that very fluid sort of surface treatment down the sides of cars, that needs finessing on a clay model by very skilled modelers to get it just right so that it's catching the light and it looks sort of consistent and not like it's just panel damage. And that can only be done if you work in clay. So they doubled down on their commitment to clay modelling. It's
interesting. Well, my MOT inspector has a Mazda, and he was explaining how much he loved it. Is it an NX100 or MX100?
Which one?
It's like a 90s coupe Mazda.
An MX3?
Or is it no? Hang on. It's a Nissan and 100 NX.
That one with sort of very strange eyes.
Squinty eyes, yes. So he's got one of those, but he did have an MX3. And I was having my Boxster MOT'd, and I was looking for a distraction just in case it didn't pass.
Yeah.
And I started to say, well, isn't it beautiful how Mazda did a 1.8 V6? And I said, I don't have any need for it, but I don't want an MX3. I just want the drivetrain. If someone could find me a 1.8 V6 and stick it on a pallet and send it to me and go, there you go, I would buy that. But in the same vein, I haven't driven yet the current Mazda, is it MX-30 range extender? With the rotary, which is the Wankel range extender. It's a fascinating drivetrain, and I almost want to take it out of that attractive but slightly useless body shape and put it into something interesting.
I just looked on Car and Classic, and there's a 1992 Mazda MX-3 for sale in Italy, I think. It's in Italy. It's got 231,000 kilometres on it.
It's the V6. Well, okay.
The asking price is €15,000.
Well, it's going to stay in Italy.
Yes,
so,
at that price.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Bloody hell, though. I mean, are they collectible, or is someone just having a go there? Because I feel they're a bit forgotten, really, aren't they?
They are forgotten, and I think the only sexy and cool thing is the engine. But I would put that engine in something like an MX-5 or that car that Ant Anstead helped to design, that little Tipo MX-5 based old looking car, which was so much fun to drive. But imagine that with a tinsy little V6, getting all the right sounds, but half decent economy. So I'm going to read this one out from Ollie Todd. Cars you just can't get rid of. SSGs, I currently have a car that, even though all logic tells me, including my partner and loved one, I shouldn't... Is that two people, or is that...
Sure.
All logic tells me I should just sell. I can't bring myself to get rid of it. The car in question is a 2012 Hyundai Veloster non-turbo with a leaking sunroof. In brackets, who designs a sunroof without drains? This is all in capitals. Ever increasing... That's an idiotic thing.
God, did they do that?
That's such a bad idea.
Yeah.
Ever increasing miles, and the fact that because I'm tall, I have to open the sunroof cover to fit my own head in the car. And with the acquisition of a company car in the last year, a Passat GTE estate that literally does everything better. It's faster, it's bigger, it's more practical, and it doesn't leak. But all that said, I just can't get rid of the Veloster. Have you guys ever had a car that you just can't get rid of? Not like Richard's Range Rover, but because you love it an unreasonable amount. Ollie, a proud moderator of the Veloster Facebook group.
Well, here's part of your problem, Ollie. You're in deep. You need to stop moderating the Veloster Facebook group for a start, because I bet if you say, I'm thinking of selling my Veloster, they all go, why would you do that? And you go, oh, yeah. Or is it the fact that you go, I don't actually like the Veloster, but I love moderating the Veloster Facebook group.
Well, perhaps.
If I sell the Veloster, they'll make me hand in my gun and my badge.
But maybe he does just like the people, and you do get to meet interesting people through car clubs and stuff. That's a known. This is a really...
I wonder what Veloster people are like. Are they? Because they're sort of maybe slightly quirky people for a slightly quirky car. Maybe they are. The Veloster people are really nice, interesting people.
To folks who aren't so clued up on Velosters, that was the asymmetric door car, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. Two doors on one side and a single longer door on the other side. And then amazingly as well, and correctly, they handed it. So it's right-hand drive and left-hand drive, the configuration changes. So you get the single long door on the driver's side every time.
Such a lot of money in pressings and
just the pressings. That's it. You've got to order double the number of pressings.
It's great that car manufacturers sometimes do this, and yet, on the other hand, don't give you a spare wheel. Yeah, it's just amazing.
It makes it theoretically possible, or it made it when they were producing that car theoretically possible, that they could do just a 3-door with using the long door pressings on both sides, or a 5-door by using the 2-door pressings on both sides, because all of that exists. And I asked someone who used to work at Hyundai if that had ever been considered, and he said no, because the whole point of that car, its USP, was that its asymmetric layout. It would have undermined the whole thing about it if they'd just made it more normal.
I think I have had cars like this. I'm on the spot. I can't think of them all. My Honda Element is a bit like this lately, because it's a really, really practical, good car, apart from the fact that the engine is not economical. And I wished it was. And also it's 4-wheel drive, and I wished it wasn't, which you could buy a 2-wheel drive one, but I didn't find one. So it's one of those cars where actually carrying stuff it's great at, but everything else, I love the packaging. It's better than so many other cars in terms of packaging. I just wish it had an economical engine, because I use it for those sorts of journeys where I want economy. It's really irritating. And I probably am going to sell it, because although I want to keep it, you just go, come on, Johnny, why are you keeping that? And, you're not Harry Metcalf. You haven't got a massive barn. So, or a farm.
If you were implying proper cockeyed male logic, you would strive to find and buy a large barn rather than just thinning out your car collection.
Well, it has been mentioned, and also the other cockeyed logic on that front. I won't take away Ollie's question too much, but the number of people who drive around in a really, really large, probably uneconomical car every day because they say, well, we go skiing in January and we go on holiday in June. And you go, okay, what? So for 365 days of the year, you drive around a car that's not really good enough or efficient enough for loads of other things. You couldn't just hire a full-size Range Rover for 1 week in January to piss off to the Alps. It's just we don't. I'm saying this because I'm somebody that doesn't have car logic a lot of the time, so I'm not. But I just don't understand that. We're basically all twats, is what I'm sort of getting.
Well, at. We all have our twatteries. I would say to answer Ollie's question, but since you're asking, no, there's nothing particularly that I don't think I've ever not been able to get rid of. But there's probably cars I've kept too long. I didn't need them, but I kept them hanging around. So maybe in a way, but that's partly just the absolute arse-ache of selling cars.
Yes.
And again, it defies logic because it's costing you money. You're insuring it and taxing it, and it's depreciating. And it would be very sensible just to get gone as soon as possible. But so I go, and I do like it. I do like, yeah. So yes, or no, whatever the question was. Yes,
but I love the fact that he can't really fit in it, and it leaks. And
I had to. So
it's not even a classic.
Hang on, he has to open the sunroof cover, not the sunroof itself. He's not driving around with his head poking out of the sunroof.
No, but it's not far away, is it?
Because that really would be impractical.
It's just amazing. Just amazing.
Did I There was a later generation Veloster that we didn't get in this country that had an N version, and wasn't it meant to be absolutely brilliant?
I bet it was. Yeah, I know we didn't get it all. I mean, I don't know. He'll know. Ollie will know how many Velosters actually exist.
He's the moderator of a Veloster Facebook group, so he's going to know everything about Velosters.
Well, quite.
Anyway, is Ollie looking for advice here, or is he just hoping to sort of that we'll sympathise?
I think if you love that car and you can stop it from leaking by garaging it or whatever, it probably is a future classic, an unusual future classic. Just go with it. I think I wanted to move on to another question, which I think
make it quick.
It's a quickie. It's a quickie, Rich.
Okay.
From a chap called Jamie. After watching Johnny's Late Break Show videos featuring the MST Mark 1 and 2 Escorts that aren't made by Ford, I've always thought that if I was to win the lottery, that would be on the top of my list. However, his recent Theon Design 911 Porsche review has thrown a spanner in the works on that side of things. The question is, in brackets, money aside, which Restomod would you prefer to own? The MST, the Theon, or something else? Over to you, Richard.
Ooh. You see, the problem is, I like that MST, it looks amazing, very tempting, but I am drawn to a Restomod 911, but if I was doing Restomod 911, I'd have to go the full Singer.
Okay.
So that's probably my answer. I know it's a bit predictable, but they are kind of the OG Restomod of the modern generation. So
they are. Yeah. I've talked about Matra Ranchos before. A Restomod Rancho would be lovely, most probably with Subaru running gear, because I think the Impreza has the same wheelbase. And that would be unbelievable because you could then go WRC componentry and almost kind of like pre-runner style suspension if you wanted to. That would be up there. But because I'm odd and stubborn, I've tried to convince numerous times through late night WhatsApps with the guy that runs MST, can he stop making Escorts and can he start making a body shelf for a Hillman Avenger, please? Just for me. So if I was an exceptionally wealthy person, I would say I want basically a brand new, old school Avenger along the vein of the MST.
So to answer Jamie's question to both of us, would you have the MST or the Theon? Our answer is neither.
Both and neither.
Fine. He did say something else, so that's okay. Good, both and neither, and all of them, all of the toys. All right, well, if you've got a question for us, hello@smithandsniff.com is the email address, and we'll do this all again next Friday. Until then, goodbye.
Cheers, mate.